The first time I realized success could make you invisible, I was standing backstage while someone else accepted an award for work I had spent 9 years creating. Nobody lied. Nobody stole my name. They simply never mentioned it. The audience stood and applauded. Cameras flashed. My CEO thanked investors, executives, and department heads. Then he looked toward the front row. "My daughter deserves special recognition," he said. Everyone turned toward her. Everyone except me. I was still standing behind the curtain holding the presentation remote. "My name is Noelle Carrington. I'm 36 years old, and for the last 12 years I've worked as the lead experience designer for one of the largest luxury cruise companies in North America. Most people think cruise ships are built by engineers. They're not. Engineers make them float. People like me decide whether guests remember them forever. Every restaurant layout, every theater entrance, every hidden lounge, every panoramic observation deck, every quiet place where someone proposes marriage or celebrates 50 years together. Those spaces begin as drawings on my desk. I've designed 5 ships. More than 2 million passengers have walked through places I imagined long before steel ever touched the ocean. Almost none of them know my name. That never bothered me. Recognition wasn't why I worked. Creation was, or at least, that's what I believed. My father spent 37 years working at a shipyard in Norfolk, Virginia. He welded steel until arthritis forced him to retire. Growing up, he always said the same thing. If you build something strong enough, your name doesn't need to be written on it. I believed him, maybe a little too much. At 24, I joined Atlantic Horizon Cruises as the youngest designer the company had ever hired. Everyone else wanted promotions, corner offices, executive titles. I wanted blueprints. I wanted empty rooms that hadn't become memories yet. I worked weekends, missed birthdays, canceled vacations. I once slept inside a half-finished ship for 3 nights because redesigning the central atrium before launch was cheaper than delaying construction. Nobody asked me to. I simply refused to leave until it was right. The company grew. Our ships won international awards, magazine covers, travel documentaries, industry recognition. Every interview featured the same people. The CEO, the marketing team, public relations, never design, never me. I honestly didn't mind, until the morning everything changed. We were beginning work on the largest cruise ship the company had ever attempted. Project Aurora, almost 6,000 passengers, 3 years of construction, a budget larger than some small towns. It was supposed to become the flagship of the entire company. On Monday morning, every department head gathered in the executive boardroom. I expected another design review. Instead, the CEO smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I've decided who will lead Project Aurora." I wasn't expecting my name. Then he looked directly at me. "Noelle, I want every original concept you've developed over the last 4 years transferred to another team by Friday." I frowned. "I'm sorry." "Transferred?" He nodded casually. "My daughter starts next week. She'll be taking creative leadership on Aurora." The room became very quiet. His daughter, Olivia, 26 years old, recently graduated, no ship design experience, no construction experience, no maritime background. The CEO continued speaking as though nothing unusual had happened. "You'll support her during the transition." Support, such a small word. It took me nearly 10 seconds to understand what it actually meant. Everything I had spent 4 years building would launch under someone else's name. No argument, no discussion, just gone. I drove home that evening with my laptop still sitting unopened on the passenger seat. For 12 years, I had convinced myself that good work eventually speaks for itself. That night, for the very first time, I wondered whether silence had simply made me easier to replace. I didn't resign. That surprised everyone, including me. The easiest thing would have been to walk away. 12 years, 5 award-winning ships, thousands of hours. I could have found another company within a month. Instead, I went back to work the next morning at exactly 7 a.m. Olivia arrived shortly after 9. She was confident, friendly, perfectly dressed, and completely unaware of how a cruise ship is actually built. She smiled as she walked into my office. "I've heard amazing things about you. I hope you'll teach me everything." I looked at her for a second. She wasn't arrogant. She wasn't cruel. She simply believed she had earned the position because nobody had ever told her otherwise. That realization somehow made everything worse. For the next 6 weeks, I trained the person replacing me. Structural flow, passenger movement, emergency evacuation paths, lighting angles, restaurant traffic patterns, everything. She wrote notes, asked questions, thanked me every evening before going home. Every Friday, the CEO stopped by her office. Never mine. Every compliment I earned, he gave to her. Then came the International Design Conference in Vancouver. Project Aurora would be revealed publicly for the first time. More than 2,000 executives, investors, journalists, and travel companies attended every year. The presentation had originally been mine. Now. My badge read only one word: support. Olivia walked onto the stage to a standing ovation. Behind the giant screen, I quietly operated the presentation. Every image, every animation, every design, I had created them. Halfway through the presentation, something unexpected happened. A journalist stood up. He raised his hand. "Miss Carrington." Olivia smiled. "Yes. I followed ship design for nearly 20 years. Could you explain why Aurora's observation deck uses an offset circulation pattern instead of a traditional center approach?" Olivia hesitated. Another question came immediately. What inspired the multi-level acoustic theater? Silence. A third reporter stood. "Can you explain why your evacuation routes eliminate crossover congestion on Deck 9? Olivia looked toward the wings. Toward me. For the first time since taking over, she realized she didn't know the answers. The room grew quiet, not hostile, just waiting. Then something happened I never expected. Olivia stepped away from the podium. She looked directly at the audience. "I'm sorry. I can't answer those questions." She turned toward the side stage. "The person who can is standing behind the curtain." More than 2,000 people turned around at the same time. I froze. Olivia smiled sadly. "Everything you're looking at, she designed. I've been presenting someone else's work." The ballroom became completely silent. My CEO stood up so quickly his chair nearly fell over. His expression wasn't angry. It was terrified, because for the first time, the people who actually understood the industry had finally learned who had been building the company's success all along. Nobody applauded, not immediately. For almost 10 seconds, the ballroom was completely silent. Then one of the senior naval architects stood up. He began clapping. Another joined him, then another. Within seconds, more than 2,000 people were on their feet. Not for the company, not for the presentation, for the person they had just discovered had actually designed it. I slowly walked onto the stage. My CEO tried to stop me. "Noelle." I looked at him politely. "For 12 years, I said quietly. I've solved problems. I'm going to solve one more. I turned toward the audience. My name is Noelle Carrington. I've spent 12 years designing ships that millions of people have enjoyed. I've never needed applause. I only wanted the work to matter. The applause became even louder. After the conference ended, something happened that nobody inside Atlantic Horizon expected. My phone didn't stop ringing. 3 international cruise companies requested meetings. 2 luxury hotel groups wanted me to lead guest experience projects. 1 European shipbuilder offered me a position before I even landed back in Virginia. For the first time in my career, people weren't calling because of the company. They were calling because they finally knew my name. Back at headquarters, everything changed. The board ordered an independent review of Project Aurora. Emails, design files, meeting records, blueprint revisions. Every document showed the same thing. Nearly every major concept had originated from my office. The CEO had never technically broken the law, but he had spent years allowing the public to believe other people deserved credit for work they hadn't created. 6 weeks later, he quietly announced his retirement. No celebration, no farewell gala, just a short internal memo thanking everyone for their service. Olivia resigned the same afternoon before leaving. She knocked on my office door. She wasn't crying. She wasn't defensive. She simply handed me a folder. Inside were every original sketch, notebook, and presentation I'd ever created. I should have asked where they came from, she said softly. I'm sorry I didn't. I smiled. You weren't the one who hid them. She nodded once, then walked away. 3 months later, I made the biggest decision of my life. I declined every job offer. Instead, I opened my own maritime design studio, not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted freedom. The first contract came from a small expedition cruise company in Alaska, then another, then another, within 3 years. Our studio had designed passenger spaces for ships sailing on 5 continents. Every blueprint carried the same line in the title block. Lead designer Noelle Carrington. No missing names, no forgotten credits, no curtains hiding who created the work. Last spring, Project Aurora finally entered service. I was invited to the naming ceremony, not by Atlantic Horizon, by the engineers, architects, and craftsmen who had worked beside me for years. I accepted, not because I needed closure, because that ship still represented 12 years of my life. As I stepped aboard, hundreds of crew members recognized me. Many walked over just to shake my hand. One young designer smiled nervously and said, I became a ship designer because of your work. For a moment, I thought about that rainy afternoon years ago when I stood backstage while someone else accepted an award built on my ideas. I realized something. Recognition arrives late sometimes, but when it finally arrives, it belongs only to the person who earned it. I never hated my former company. I never hated Olivia. I simply stopped believing my future depended on people who refused to see my value. The greatest promotion I ever received was the day I stopped waiting for someone else to give me one.